In today's show, we're going to talk about Power Automate for SharePoint, and what we're going to do is work with selected item. So for a selected item, lets us choose a specific item in a list and then have a flow trigger with that. So that flow, we're going to have some different inputs, and we're going to take the output, we're going to send it to an email, we're going to send it to Teams, and we're going to talk about some functions that kind of shape the data a little bit too. So should be fun, should be fast. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with Power Apps 911. Those guys. And today, we're going to talk about for a selected item inside of Power Automate, or Flow as you might call it. Whatever you call it, we're going to mess with it. Because what we want to do is we want to talk about triggering off of a specific item and doing something with the data, how we might have to go get some more data from that data, or even shape the data. There's a lot of little nuances here, little things that I did to make it a little harder. So if you've used this trigger action before, you should get something out of the video because we're going to do some expressions we haven't covered before as well. So I don't know. I just thought it was fun. This came from someone who left me a comment previously, said, hey, how do I do bloody, bloody, bloody? As that makes a good video. So we're going to mess with it. Anyway, let's switch over to my desktop and take a look. All right, let's first start with the end in mind, right? Let's go show you what it does. So we're going to go here to my SharePoint site. As part of my live SharePoint class, I came up with some new dog-based data, all the different Power Apps 911 dogs. A little fun there. It was a good class. So here, if we go, let's go choose Finn, right? So I'm going to grab Finn right here. And when we select an item in our SharePoint list, we can now go up here to Power Automate. And so I have a flow that shows up here called Practice Item. And so if we choose that, now you're going to say, who do you want to email it to? Well, we'll just email it to me because that's the easiest one to show you. There's me. Do you want to notify that person on Teams? Of course I do. Don't notify them via email, of course. And we'll say hi to the nice viewers. There you go. So this is taking input for a selected item. And then now the user says run a flow. It is off and running. And in just a moment, we should see that over here in Teams. Look, here's a link to the item. It was sent to you by Shane Young. That's me. Dog name is Finn Christian. And comments, say hi to the nice viewers. And there is our cute little puppy. Oh, so there's that. And then what we're also going to see, if I go click on my emails, one sec. So there you go. I got the same thing in email because I told it to send me both, right? So we configured all that. But there's a few fun things that we're going to do here as we walk through the logic of the building a flow. And the hardest part, though, is getting this image in here. So this is actually the thumbnail image. This is not the full image file URL that we'd stored. We said, take that URL and go find its real record. And then from its real record, grab its thumbnail and then put its thumbnail in here. That was where I ended up spending all my time yesterday trying to figure out how to build this thing. So let's talk about, let's build one of these ourselves. And I was torn if I should just show you the working flow or if we should build it ourselves. I decided we're going to build it ourselves. So first thing we'll do over here is go to create. And it's technically an instant flow, but it doesn't really matter because if you know me, I'm just going to say skip here. And so the first thing I'm going to do is go to SharePoint. And so there's a whole bunch of SharePoint triggers. And usually we do think of things like when SharePoint item is modified or edited, deleted. But in the past, we did for a selected file. That's where we took an Excel file and sucked that in, right? And we'll put a link up there if you want to see that one. But we then process that Excel file and save the data to SharePoint. That was for a selected file. This time we want to do for a selected item because we want to be attached to a list, not to a document library. So for a selected item, we're then going to choose our SharePoint site. And we'll keep playing with the doggy data. I like that. So we'll choose a SharePoint class. And then the list, we're going to do doggy data. There we go. So that's how you trigger. Now, adding inputs is optional. But we know that we're going to want to do that. So we're going to go ahead and add, we'll add all three of the ones, or we'll add all four. So the first one here we're going to do is we're just doing email, and it's pretty much as easy as that. And whatever you put here on the left side, this is what will show up in the flow or for the user, right? So I got confused. I thought it was what was over here. So that's why mine was messed up. I had to fix it, blah, blah, blah. You don't care. So anyway, there's the email. So then we're going to then have two yes, nos. So I'm going to do a yes, no. I'm going to say Teams. All right, we're just going to make this easy. I'm not going to write out a bunch of stuff because I can't type very well. And then yes, no here as well. This is going to be email. And then finally, we'll add one more input for a text. And what we'll do here is comments. Now, one of the things I will tell you about these is, you do have additional options over here. I never think about these, and Phil reminded me on Twitter yesterday. So if you go to comments, notice here that if you want to change the comments to be a drop down, or if you want to make the field optional, you can change these behaviors. We're not going to get into any of that right now, or at least for this video, but I thought this was worth pointing out to you guys. You can see up here, yes, no, make those optional, email, make it optional. All right, so we don't want it. We want them to provide all this, but we have the ability to control that. And the drop-down's a nice choice because I was like, you can't add a drop-down, Phil, you crazy. Well, you can't add it this way, but you make it text, and then you can. So, very cool. Thanks for that. Okay, so that's for a selected item. Now, strangely enough, like when we start thinking about for a selected item, like, oh, that gets the whole item. So let's just do a compose here and look for a second. So if we go to compose and we start to look at the dynamic content, you're actually going to see that for a selected item doesn't give you everything, right? It gives you some of the properties of the file or the record in SharePoint that you chose, but not all of them. And I need all of them for my work. So what we're going to do is we're not going to just rely on for a selected item. The first thing that I typically have to do in these scenarios, let's get rid of that, is we're going to do another SharePoint, and we're then going to get item. And you got to be careful when you're choosing these because there's get items and get item. We want the singular. We want to get that one item that they selected. Because if we do a get item, and so now we choose the same SharePoint sites, right? I think Flow should know. Flow knows where I'm going here, but it doesn't. Dogging data. So then now we use the for selected items ID because the beauty of this going forward is we now have access to, if I click the button, from get item, look, there's all of our columns of data, right? We now have the whole record. We have everything we'd look for. So that's one of those little mental hurdles, right? I don't get what I want. That's okay. We can go get what we want because get item has everything. So keep that in mind. Okay, so that gets us the item that they just sent us. And so from there, we'll do the simple first, right? Adding that thumbnail is kind of hard. Like I spent like an hour and a half, I don't know, too long figuring it out. So let's do the easy stuff first. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a condition. And I'm going to say, hey, remember we did those yes, nos. So we're going to scroll way down here. And so we said, we'll do email, right? So if email question mark, and notice email, this is the email address of the person who triggered it. We don't want that. We want email question mark is equal to, and since it was a yes, no, the first time I did this, I typed in yes. Oops, I actually meant to type in true. So email question mark is equal to true. Then what do we want to do? We want to send these people an email. And so we'll do an Outlook. And then we're going to say, I hate that send email is so hard to find. There it is, send email V2 or whatever your latest V number is. Who do you want to send it to? I want to send it to the, dynamic content. And for a selected item, remember we had the email. So this was that very top one where they chose email, the first input. This is the email of the person that did it. I think I just said that wrong like 30 seconds ago. Shh. So email right here. What is the subject? How about something very simple? Hey, look at the cute pup. Throw a little smiley. No, I don't think smiley face works. We'll just do that. And so then in the body now, so what we're going to do initially is we're just going to do something easy, right? This was sent by, and then we can use the for selected item. And so here there should be I don't want the user ID, I want the username. Let's try user. Let's type in search. I think I had this problem before. Yeah, so if you do search, oh look, now it's like, oh, there it is, username. So they were hiding this from me. This trigger for selected item seems to make you want to work for it. So anyway, we're going to grab their username, even though it didn't show up by default. So this was sent by username. The pup's name is, and so then this is from our get item. And so here we're just going to do name, name. And so this is going to be first name and last name. Oh, I forgot to put a space in the middle. There we go. Because if we go look at our SharePoint list, I'm storing a first name and a last name column here. So these are the columns that we're exposing over in Flow. So there you go. So there's our cute pup. There you are. And the other thing I did earlier, just to, I think this will help us, right? So link to item. So if you want to give them a link straight to the item, we'll do a search for link here. And then one more, we're going to do link to pup face. And the reason for that is because in a minute, we're going to have to talk about this face, and it is hard. So there you go. So that puts all the data in. And for me, this is enough to test, right? Don't try to boil the ocean. Let's get our first test in and figure out if we're doing what we want. But by putting these fields here, I can also start to visualize the data I got to work with. So we're going to call this send a pup pic. Yeah, I like that. All right, we'll say save. Now, while this is saving, I want to talk about one thing. This for a selected item flow only shows up if the flow was created in your default environment, right? So if you have a bunch of different flow environments up here, then you have to be in the default for it to show up over in SharePoint. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, then I bet you're already working in the default environment. Don't overthink it. But just if you run into issues and it's not showing up, it's because you're not in the default environment. So it is saved. It is good. So if we go back over here to SharePoint, just for good luck, I'm going to refresh. And let's just choose, we'll choose Adeline. Hello, Adeline. And so now we're going to say automate. And when you hit this drop down, hopefully, there you go. So there's practice item. That's one I did yesterday. And then send a pup pic magically shows up. So your user selects send a pup pic. All right, the first time they run it, they have to consent to using their SharePoint and Outlook connectors. Fair enough. So then now it's like, hey, what email address do you want to send it to? So we're just start to type in me again. There we go. We could also send it to Chewy. Then it's like, all right, do you want to send it to Teams? It doesn't matter. We're not using that one, but we'll say yes. You want to send an email? Yes. Oh, I forgot to include the comment. You didn't show this. Oopsie. So now we'll say run the flow. So then that should go and trigger. And if I go look at my email, I should have an email. One sec. So look at that. We got what we want, an email to both me and Chewy. This was sent by me. Yeah, it makes sense. The pup's name is Adeline Boswell. Hi, Adeline. Here's the link to the SharePoint item, and here's the link to Adeline's cute little face. Hi, Adeline. She's so cute. Don't tell anybody. There you go. Chewy will get jealous. So there you go. That did, I think, everything we wanted on the first try, right? Other than we gotta add some more pieces, but that's good, right? I feel nice that we got that. Good job, team. High five. Psh. Okay. So then let's go over here to our flow again. And let's make it harder, I guess. Let's make it more complex. Let's make it better. But this is how I did it. Like when I was building this by myself down here yesterday, jamming to some sick beats. I'm such a dork. Anyway, when I was doing that, I was definitely, this is how I kind of baby step my way through it. So one thing I know I want to add here is comments. And so then for the comments, right, what would that come from? Well, not from face. Comments was from our for selected item comments. Okay, so that would have gotten the comments in there. Now, in order to do this for Teams, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to go down here. So we're going to kind of minimize this, make our lives easier. We're just going to add another new step, another condition. And so in this condition, it's going to be, should be our friend Teams again. Teams right there is equal to true. And so then in here, we'll say add an action. We're going to search for Teams. And so in Teams, you can do this a lot of ways, right? We've talked about these before. I've covered these in some of my training classes, but we could just post a message into a channel. We can post a message in a chat or a channel. And so the difference here is, this one, I can just post a message in, and I believe this one will just go in as me, the flow runner. But if we do post a message in a chat or channel, which is a newer one, we can either choose to post as the flow bot or as the actual user that this flow is running its context as. And so in this case, I'm going to choose Flowbot, but you could go either way. The only time that you can't go either way is if you're doing like adaptive cards you want responses to, then it has to be Flowbot. But this will just be me, or we'll do Flowbot anyway. We're going to say, where do you want to post in? I need to post to a specific Teams channel or a chat with Flowbot. So this is going to be a post to a specific user and recipient. So this is going to be the from our for selected item. This is going to be the email field, right? This was who we wanted to send it to. And then finally down here, the message. Well, remember, you can always just come up here, right? We can almost send the same message either way. I'm lazy. I don't like to type too much. So I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to grab my Outlook one. I'm just going to highlight all this. Control C. Go down here. Control V. It put all those pieces back together. We could have reassembled it, but I'm lazy. So there you go. So that's enough change, I think, to test. So we'll just say save. Now, I'm not really sure what's going to happen here because we did both my email and Chewy. I did not test this ahead of time. You guys want to be brave, see what happens? I do. If it blows up, well, so be it. We'll test this. Okay, so this test doesn't work, right? But this is not because of the Shane Chewy thing. What this is saying, if you want this translated, this basically says that your test run had tokens for Outlook and for SharePoint. We just added Teams. There's no token for Teams, so Teams can't be invoked from a test. That's fair. Kind of neat though, right? So that's a very common error that really frustrates me sometimes until I calm down and realize it's my fault. So let's go over here. We'll choose Clay. Hello, Clay. And so now we'll say automate. We will send a pup pick again. Should we be brave and try 2 people? Why not? What is it not? See, here you can see it's looking to authenticate with Teams for the first time. All right. If it breaks, I don't want to hear about it. Yeah, I'll probably hear about it anyway. There you go. Teams, email, comment. Hello, people. That's not how you spell people. Who cares? Run a flow. All right. So that is running. And so now we're going to cross our fingers that I get notified here in just a second. But because I'm a little nervous it's not going to run, I'm going to go click on flows. I'm going to go back here, send a pup pick. Failed. Boom. Womp womp. All right. So it's saying, hey, there's no user that is both of those people. Okay. So the thing that we've written will not work for two email addresses. So we're not going to solve this today, but what you would have to do then, I guess, is go in because notice that they automatically get split by a semicolon. So we would have had to add logic to our flow to be like, hey, are there more than 2 people? Oh no, there are. And then run the action, like loop through the action of some sort. So it's a solvable problem, but not a solvable problem this morning because my kid's got to go to school in a few minutes. Okay. So there you go. We know that that doesn't work. Let's go back over here. Let's try Murph. Another LeMay dog. Let's send a pup pick. This time let's only send it to me. There we go. We'll put in Shane. Send it in Teams, send it in email. This better work. There we go. And finally, we will run this flow. All right. So that is running. Boom. I just got notified in Teams. Now you notice over here in Teams, this will better work. So in Teams, these URLs are not automatically getting formatted. Interesting. But if we go to our email, they do. Okay. So what this is telling me is that Outlook is figuring out how to auto format these. Teams is not. No big deal. We're going to go back over here. We do not. We'll just go hit edit. We know that worked. So then what I would want to do is actually come in here. And so after you've got this kind of close, you've got all the right pieces. If you hit this little button here, this will change to the HTML, the code view. Scary. And so what I can do is I go up here and be like, hey, link to item. And so then I'm just going to be like href equals single quote. Make sure it's right there. Close my single quote. Oh, nope. See, this is one you got to check. Go to end. Single quote there. And then we'll close that. We'll say click. And then we'll do a close the A. So just like that, that should add that as an actual hyperlink. Let's try it. Test. Automatic. Boom, 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 and boom. Okay, there you go. We'll go back to flow. And look, link to item is now an actual clickable hyperlink. So you just have to know a little bit of HTML. We've talked about this before. You guys have to learn a little HTML, but there you go. We've got it. You might also notice here, this confused me as well. This was sent by UTH. So when you run this particular trigger and you test, if you reprocess the test, it will always, the sent by will not be the actual person that sent it. It'll be some weird letters and numbers. So that's normal. But if we went and clicked it over in the browser again in SharePoint, we would get what we wanted. So, all right, there you go. So we are almost there. We are also kind of getting a little long. So let's do the final piece of this puzzle. And that is get these people's thumbnails in here. So I'm going to have to do this and get it right. So what we're going to need to do here is there is no way, right? Because right now, if you think about it, we don't, over here, these pictures, these are actually, this is a hyperlink column to a SharePoint document library that we're set the hyperlink column to a picture status. That's how this column works. That's why it shows the picture fine here. But in reality, the picture is not in this list. It's in the document library, and we're just referencing it, pulling it in. So on the flow side, this makes things a lot a bit tricky for us. So if we go over here to add an action, and we go to SharePoint, so there is actually a get a file or get file properties by path. And I'm never going to find it by scrolling through. So we're going to search for path. So there is get file metadata using path. Okay. So you have to use this one first, because in here, what we'll see, and this is how I walk myself through this. We're going to eventually, there we go, click on SharePoint class. And then the first thing I did was all right, let me go see, if I go grab Murph's face directly, right? So we click right here and we go in and we'll just go to Clay. And so we go to Clay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, that looks like what I expect. I'm going to click right here and we're going to do what's called peek code. This lets us look at our code. And so what I'm really after here is how did they handle this? So they handled it. It's a /dogs, which is the name of the document library, and then Clay the dog. Okay, so that gets my brain thinking, all right, I need to be able to get to that dynamically. But before I go all the way with that, I want to, because I know there's an issue, we're going to go a little bit further so we can, get through this. So anyway, this will get us the file metadata using path. File metadata does not give us the thumbnail. Meh. So what we need is we need to now say back to add another action and SharePoint, and then get file properties. Okay. So this is what we're going to do. Now you're saying, Shane, why don't you go straight to get file properties? Because unfortunately, get file properties only takes an ID. I didn't have the ID until get file metadata using path, which would take a URL, gives me an ID. So then down here for ID, there's item ID. And so now we can go in here. Oh, I'm going backwards for some reason. SharePoint class, SharePoint library names, dogs. So there you go. So this is another one of those things, right? I spent more minutes than I care to explain, but I couldn't get where I wanted directly. So I kept having to find these intermediate steps. You've got to be brave. Sometimes you got to just not give up. You got to be like, hey, I know there's got to be a way to get there. And then, right, because we've had to pull in two extra things so far, right? The extra get item to get the dog's first name and last name. And we had to pull this in to get the ID of the file that came from get item so that we could put the puzzle back together. So that is very important to understand. But now that we've done this, now if we go down here, we're just still in we've been showing teams. We'll go down here to teams. And so in teams, guess what? You get to write some HTML again. Oh, before I do that, what I'm going to do is we're going to say thumbnail. And we're going to then say, all right, from get file properties, we'll just search. Thumbnail. So there's a small, a medium, or a large. How big do you want it to be? Let's go with medium. That's what I've been using. Okay. So that pulls it in, but this is just going to give you the URL to the thumbnail. Boo. So what you're going to have to do now, hit your old code thing again. And so I'm going to go right here. I am going to just get rid of the word thumbnail. Actually, I didn't want that. And so we're going to do an image tag. So img and then source equals single quote. Oh, there's that extra space. Can get rid of that. Go to the end, single quote, and then finally close your image tag. So that's what it's going to look like when you get the image source. It's going to be the URL to, not the full file, to the actual thumbnail. All right, this seems close enough to test. So we're going to say save. Now we didn't add any new token requirements, so I don't actually have to go over and trigger it. We should be able just to do our test succeeded right here. So we'll just do a test this way. And also one of the things to keep in mind with this is hopefully it's going to work. That's the first thing. Yay, look at that. It's Murphy Lee the pup. Murphy Lee LeMay, not Lee, Murphy Lee someone else. Murphy LeMay the pup. So we got the image in here. Now, keep in mind that this thumbnail is a link to SharePoint file service, blah. So these links might not work if you're getting outside the ecosystem. You know, so like if you're trying to send it to a customer, this thumbnail is probably not going to work because they're not going to be able to get to the thumbnail. I haven't played with it that far, but internally, everyone's already authenticated to SharePoint in their life, so they should be able to see it. But just keep that in mind when you start trying to suck these thumbnails in. Because they are URLs, they're not the encoded version of the file, you might have some challenges there. But there you go. So that works. Now, the last thing we need to do is up here. I want to go up here and show you guys. So get file metadata using path. So it's like, hey, dogs, the clay. So this worked, but we hard coded it. So now what we need to do is we're going to, the last hard thing, oh, this video is getting long, is I need to get this dynamically. So we're going to say add an action, and we're going to do a compose. There's the compose. And so then in this input here from get item, we are looking for dog face because that is the, remember from our email, that's the URL to the dog's face, which is what we're going to use. We're going to have to break down to get to this format. So there's dog face, but we don't actually want that. We want to do an expression here. And so there is a string expression called replace that I chose to use yesterday. Oh, that's cute. It's not, look at that, see more, see less, not doing anything. Let's click out, let's click back in. Let's try this again. Expression. Maybe it's because I got stuff in the search box over here. Who wants to scream at flow for me? Oh, that's weird. I've never seen that behavior before. Okay. So in here, we're going to use replace. I'm going to replace the full URL. So what is the full URL? That is dog face. Reminds me of Microface from Planet Money. And what do I want? What is the old text I'm looking for? So in our case, it is, oh, I might have been able to grab that. Oh, geez, old Pete Shane. Let's try again. Replace, content, dog face. Oh, flow is challenging sometimes. Let's go right there. So string, single quote. Aha, I grabbed it though. So this is the whole URL to the SharePoint site, right? So we're going to look in that string and find the base, the root URL, because this will be in all of them, but we want to pull it off because we just want to start with the single splash. And what do you want to replace it with? Nothing. So just a blank like that should be a closing thing. All right. So here, let's grab this formula real quick. Control A, Control C. Say OK so I don't have to do it again. So if you go right here, you can say add a note. And if we do that, now you guys can see the whole thing, right? Replace, outputs, dog face, with find, HTTP, blah, 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 blah. And then replace it with two single quotes, which is nothing. So that will strip that off the front of the URL. So we should be left with dogs, clay, the dog. Now, I know that this doesn't actually work, so we're going to skip the error that would happen. But what happens is it actually, this down here, it doesn't tell you, but it wants an encoded version, not just a straight string. So what we're going to do right here is we're going to go back up here. And in our expressions, there is a encode URI component. So this just takes and puts in like %20s for all the spaces and replaces all of the slashes with %53s or something like that. So you just wrap that beautiful thing that we just wrote in that. And then we'll say Control A, Control C, so you can see it. Update. We'll close this one. We'll add a note, edit note. Control A. We'll put this one in now so you can see the whole thing. So then that will actually put it in the format that we need it. So then now down here, we're just going to say add dynamic content and take that compose as output and then delete all this. Technically, you wouldn't have to have the compose. You could just put this exact formula down here. I like to break it into separate, especially when I'm teaching, because it helps you guys see it better. But I kind of think that might work. So then, yeah, let's save it. It is saved. Let's go over here and let's trigger it with a new dog. So that way we know if we see new dogs, we get it. Oh, how about Adeline's little sister, Zoe? She is a troublemaker, I hear. Allison has great stories about her. So we're going to say automate. We're going to say send a pup picture. We'll do me again. We'll do this. We'll do this. And then we'll say, hi, Zoe. We will run the flow and we will cross our fingers because, whoa, this video's gotten long. I really need this to work on the first try. Please work. All right, I paused and I didn't get an email, so I'm a little scared. Let's go back over here. Let's go here. It failed. All right, what did I do wrong? So down here, I said get file using path dogs zo png, the file site, file sites, SharePoint class testing, dogs Zoe does not exist. Interesting, interesting. I feel like that did what I wanted. All right. Hold that thought 1 sec. Oh, you know what? I used get file metadata the other way. So I wonder if... All right, let's try this. Now I'm really annoyed. Let's get rid of the encode. Oh, I did not mean for that to happen. Let's go over here. Let's get rid of the encode. And let's go over here. So we're just going to pull off the stuff that we didn't want. And now let's do another test. So we're just getting rid of the encoding. So this way it should just give it the straight string. Interesting. So do we get, there's Zoe. Oh, well, how fun is that? I learned something new. I'm trying to show you guys. So here we said get metadata using path. So with metadata using path, we did not need the encoded, right? Let's go here. Let's go to the test run so you can see what it sent. So on the compose, it did dogs zo JPEG. And so here it did dogs zo PNG, not JPEG, PNG. But if we go look over here, let me go show you guys. So this is, right, this is the one that we did. It works. Yay. So if we go back over here to my other one, the one I did in practice yesterday, called practice item, ironically enough. So in this particular one, instead I used get file metadata. I didn't use the path. I just used get file metadata. It needed an identifier. It had to be encoded. So I had to use that encode URI function. So there you go. I made it harder on myself yesterday. That seems like something I would do, doesn't it? But awesome possum. All right. So we've got this whole thing doing what we wanted to, right? We're getting this. Last little step in our flow that we actually want to do, not the one that I want to show you. So this is this one, is we want to do the same thing in Outlook. But guess what? You do not have to do, you don't have to try very hard. Put your mouse in here, Control A, Control C, scroll back up here to Outlook. Control A, delete. Control A, paste. And so now you get the identical stuff. If you really wanted to be clever, you could have put all of this into a compose itself and then just reference the compose in the body of both these so you didn't have duplicates. That would have been even smarter, but that type of stuff gets weird when I'm trying to teach you guys kind of how this all goes through, right? So that's why I didn't overdo it. I do not know where these weird href pieces came from. Let's get rid of all these. That's weird. Href. Flow tried to fix it for me. Oh, well, you saw the right way when we were doing it earlier, right? We just went in here and we put in our link to item ourselves. So we put a single quote here, and then we put a single quote here, and then here. Oh. And then we just did this. There you go. Flow being helpful and confusing me as usual. Awesome possum. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I know like in the beginning it was easy, and by the end it was like crazy. It's kind of how I roll. If you have any questions, any comments, leave them below. Also, you know what? Because we had that whole problem with when I chose 2 email addresses, it didn't work. I'm going to fix that, and on Thursday, I will make a video on how I work through the logic there to loop through those 2. Should be pretty easy, I think, because I think I'm just going to split it and then apply to each for the split. So, but I don't know. We'll find out on Thursday. Yeah, as I said, questions, comments, go below. Hit the subscribe button, please. Thank you. All right, I got kids to take to school. Chewy's got to go to the vet today, and I'm teaching class all day. Woo! It's a busy day. So, thanks, and you have a great day. Before you go, be sure to click on the subscribe button over here so that way you'll be notified when new videos come out. If you need any help or you want to work together, whether your problem is big or small, check us out at Power Apps 911. We do it all. I rhymed. Or if you're looking for more formal training offerings, we have those linked up here somewhere. So check them out. Thanks and have a great day.